Hey guys, tonight we're taking a look at one of the most visible, most feared, and most misunderstood aspects of historical life disease. Not the great, sweeping plagues that kill in a matter of days, but the slow, chronic, and often horrifying diseases that wrote their terrible stories directly onto the skin of our ancestors. For thousands of years, before the science of dermatology, before we understood germs or genetics, any rash, any ulcer, any strange blemish was a source of profound terror, a sign of a deep inner corruption or a divine curse. Tonight's story is about what it was like to be a healer in that world, an apothecary or a physician, faced with these terrifying afflictions and armed with a pharmacopoeia of almost entirely useless cures. And let's be honest, you probably wouldn't have survived the treatments, let alone the diseases. Imagine going to your doctor for a simple case of eczema, and their state-of-the-art prescription is a soothing plaster made from pigeon droppings, or a lotion of white lead and vinegar. The phrase first, "do no harm," was often more of a vague suggestion than a guiding principle. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet and simple way to support the channel. And while you're at it, I'd love to see where and when you're tuning in from. Go ahead and drop your city and local time in the comments. It's always a little fascinating to see our community of history lovers spread across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world smells of dried herbs, of beeswax, of the sharp, mineral tang of ground sulfur. It is the complex and earthy perfume of a physician's workshop in the great city of Rome. In the 2nd century AD, during the reign of the Emperor Antoninus Pius, this is the heart of the Pax Romana, the great Roman peace. The empire is vast, stable, and prosperous, and you, a young Greek boy, have been sent here as an apprentice to one of the city's most respected physicians, a man named Master Demetrios. Your master is a Greek, as are most of the best physicians in Rome. He is a man of science and of learning, a follower of the great Hippocrates and the brilliant, encyclopedic Galen. Your life as his apprentice is one of quiet study, of endless, repetitive tasks, and of slowly absorbing the great, complex, and elegant art of healing as it is understood in your time. Your days are spent in your master's medicina, his clinic and workshop, a series of rooms in a respectable building near the Forum. The front room is for consultations, where your master receives his patients. The back rooms are your domain. They are a library of natural substances, the shelves lined with ceramic jars and glass vials filled with powders, oils, and dried herbs from every corner of the known world. Your primary tool is the heavy stone mortar and the even heavier stone pestle. You spend countless hours at a great stone table, grinding. You grind dried willow bark into a fine powder for fevers. You grind sulfur into a bright yellow dust for skin ailments. You grind peppercorns, ginger, and 100 other exotic spices for complex digestive remedies. Your arms ache with a constant, dull weariness. You are learning that being a healer is mostly just manual labor with a bit of fancy Greek terminology thrown in. Your true education, however, is in the great theory that underpins all of your master's work. It is the theory of the four humors. This is the bedrock of your science. Your master, Demetrios, teaches you that the human body is a microcosm of the universe, composed of 4 essential fluids: blood, which is hot and moist; phlegm, which is cold and moist; yellow bile, which is hot and dry; and black bile, which is cold and dry. Health, he explains, is a state of perfect balance, of harmony between these 4 humors, and all disease, every single affliction, is simply an imbalance. And the skin, he teaches you, is the great window to the body's internal state. It is a canvas upon which the inner turmoil of the humors paints its revealing portrait. Observe the skin. Boy, he tells you, his voice stern and academic, and it will tell you all you need to know. You learn to read the skin. A patient who is too ruddy, whose skin is hot and prone to angry. Red rashes, is clearly suffering from an excess of the sanguine humor, of hot blood. The treatment is obvious cooling, drying remedies. A patient whose skin is pale, clammy, and prone to wet. Weeping sores is suffering from an excess of phlegm. They must be treated with warming, drying herbs. A patient whose skin is sallow or jaundiced is afflicted by an overabundance of hot, dry yellow bile, and a patient with dry, scaly, dark, or thickened skin is in the grip of cold. Dry black bile, the humor of melancholy. It is a complete, logical, and deeply satisfying system. It gives you a sense of confidence, of mastery, for every outward sign. There is an inward cause, and for every cause. There is a corresponding remedy in one of your hundreds of jars. You learn to mix the remedies. You create the salves and the poultices. For a simple itching rash, you mix a paste of sulfur and vinegar for an inflamed wound. You create a poultice of comfrey root and honey for dry skin. You mix a soothing ointment of lanolin, the fat from sheep's wool, and olive oil. And you learn about the more expensive, more exotic, and more profitable remedies for your master's wealthy clients. You see him prepare a special cosmetic face mask for a senator's wife, who is concerned about the fine lines appearing around her eyes. The mixture is a closely guarded secret, but you see the ingredients. He mixes fine white lead powder for its whitening properties, with ass's milk, with honey, and with the most bizarre ingredient of all, a spoonful of powdered crocodile dung, imported at great expense from Egypt. This, he explains to the senator's wife, is a legendary substance known for its ability to tighten and tone the skin. You wonder if the crocodiles of the Nile are aware of their great contribution to Roman cosmetology. This is the world you inhabit, a world where medicine, chemistry, and high-end cosmetic sales all blend together. Your master is a respected man of science, but he is also a businessman, and his status in the city of Rome is a complex and often contradictory thing. You see this in the way his patients treat him. The poor, who he sometimes treats for free in the public porticos. Look at him with a kind of religious awe. They believe he is a miracle worker, but then a wealthy patrician, a man of an old and noble family, will summon him to his great villa, and he will treat your master not as a respected intellectual, but as a high-class tradesman, a hired hand to be ordered about. This is the great debate about the status of physicians in your world. Were they seen as true scientists, as philosophers of the body, or were they simply skilled craftsmen? Their profession ranked alongside that of an architect or a sculptor, a status far below that of a senator or lawyer. The fact that most of the best doctors are, like your master, Greeks and not true Romans, only adds to the social ambiguity. But you have no time for such concerns. You are an apprentice, and you are learning. Your days are filled with the sights, sounds, and smells of your trade, the rhythmic thump of your pestle, the sweet smell of the rosewater you are distilling in a glass alembic, the sight of your master, holding a flask of a patient's urine up to the light, studying its color and its sediment with the intense focus of a jeweler examining a gem. You feel that you are being initiated into a great and powerful mystery. You believe in the wisdom of your master. You believe in the truth of his theories. You believe that with your herbs, your minerals, your salves, and your potions. You are armed with the knowledge to fight back against the 1,000 different afflictions that can mar and destroy the human skin. One afternoon, a new patient arrives at your master's clinic. He is not a wealthy senator or a poor laborer. He is a soldier, a legionary, just returned from the eastern frontiers, and he is complaining of a strange affliction that has appeared on his arm. Your master examines him. You watch, On the soldier's forearm is a series of small, angry, red blisters, arranged in a distinct line, a path of inflammation that seems to follow the course of a nerve under the skin. The soldier says the pain is excruciating, a burning, stabbing pain that is far worse than any sword cut he has ever received. Your master is quiet for a long time. He has not seen this before. He consults his great books. He declares that it must be a form of ignis sacer, the sacred fire, a kind of erysipelas, a hot, angry inflammation caused by a particularly virulent excess of yellow bile. He prescribes a cooling, soothing poultice of cucumber seeds and lettuce leaves. You prepare the poultice. You apply it to the soldier's burning arm. But it does nothing. The blisters continue to spread. The pain grows worse. The soldier, a man who has faced Parthian archers, weeps like a child from the sheer, unrelenting agony. You look at the man's suffering. You look at the useless green paste on his arm. And you look at your master's face. And for the first time, you see not the confident, all-knowing physician, but a man who is faced with a mystery he cannot solve, a pain he cannot soothe. And in that moment, a tiny, cold seed of doubt is planted in your own heart. You have been trained to believe that your art has an answer for everything, but you are beginning to suspect that there are some diseases, some horrors, that are beyond the reach of yourselves, your theories, and your comforting lies. The memory of the soldier and his sacred fire is a disquieting one. It is your first true encounter with the absolute limits of your master's science. The poultices did not work. The cooling lotions brought no relief. The man, after a week of agony, simply left. His arm still a mass of blistering pain, seeking a different kind of cure from the priests at the temple of Asclepius. His departure leaves a small, unspoken question hanging in the air of the workshop. What do you do when the theory is not enough? But your master, Demetrios, is a practical man. He quickly moves on. A physician in the city of Rome cannot afford to dwell on his failures. There are too many new patients, too many new and interesting imbalances of the humors that require his attention. And so, your education continues. You put the memory of the sacred fire behind you, and you delve into the mundane, everyday, and deeply miserable world of common skin afflictions. This, you learn, is the real bread and butter of your trade. For every dramatic, terrifying, and inexplicable disease like the one the soldier had, there are 100 common, itchy, scaly, and deeply unpleasant rashes that plague the citizens of this crowded, magnificent, and not particularly clean city. Your master decides it is time for you to learn the art of the salve, the poultice, and the wash. You are to become an expert, not just in theory, but in the practical, hands-on work of mixing the remedies for these common complaints. Your first lesson is in the treatment of scabies, the common itch. A slave is brought to your clinic by his master, a wealthy senator. The slave is a young man, but his body is a roadmap of misery. He is covered in a red, angry rash, particularly between his fingers, on his wrists, and in the folds of his skin. He is scratching himself with a frantic, desperate energy, his skin already raw and bleeding from his own fingernails. He tells you the itch is worse at night, and maddening, sleepless torment. You do not know, of course, that the cause of his suffering is a tiny, microscopic mite, Sarcops scabiei, that is burrowed under his skin to lay its eggs. You cannot see the mite. So for you, it does not exist. Your master, Demetrios, examines the man and makes his diagnosis based on the principles of humoral medicine, a classic case of an adist, or burnt. Humor, he declares with confidence. The blood has become too hot and sharp, and it is irritating the skin from within, causing the intense pruritus. The cure, therefore, is not to kill the mite, but to cool the blood and to treat the skin with a powerful purifying ointment. The primary ingredient for this ointment is sulfur. You are sent to the back room with your mortar and pestle. You take a lump of yellow, crystalline sulfur, which smells faintly of brimstone, and you begin the long, laborious process of grinding it into a fine, smooth powder. To this, you add lard common pig fat to create a thick, greasy yellow paste. It is a simple recipe, and it smells like rotten eggs. You bring the ointment to your master. He instructs the slave to be washed, and then to be covered from head to toe in your sulphurous, stinking paste. The slave is to be wrapped in old linens and left like this for 3 days. It is a miserable, deeply unpleasant treatment. But, as it happens, it works. The sulfur is a natural insecticide and is actually toxic to the scabies mite. You have, by complete accident, stumbled upon an effective cure, but for entirely the wrong reasons. You believe you have cooled the man's hot blood. In reality, you have just poisoned a tiny bug. Your next patient is a child, the daughter of a baker, who is brought in by her mother. The girl has several strange, perfectly circular, red, and scaly patches on her arms and neck. It is what your people call herpes, a word that at this time refers to any kind of spreading. Eruptive skin condition. The common people call it ringworm, because they believe it is caused by a small worm burrowing in a circle under the skin. Your master scoffs at this peasant superstition. There is no worm. He tells the mother with disdain. He diagnoses the condition as an eruption caused by a sharp, acrid humor. The cure is a drying, astringent wash. You are sent to prepare it. You mix strong vinegar with a solution of crushed alum and a tincture of myrrh. You are essentially creating a kind of acidic chemical peel. The girl weeps as it is applied to her sensitive skin. But the treatment, by drying out the fungal infection, again, has some limited success. You learn that much of your medicine works this way by accident. The theories are a fantasy of humors and vapors. But the practical remedies, developed over centuries of trial and error, sometimes manage to stumble upon a real therapeutic effect. You treat the common afflictions of a world without sanitation. You see impetigo, the honey-crusted sores that are so common on the faces of children. You see boils and carbuncles, painful, pus-filled abscesses that you treat by applying a hot poultice of bread and milk to bring them to a head. Before your master lances them with a sharp, hot knife, you become proficient at mixing these remedies. You take pride in the smoothness of your ointments, the clarity of your herbal washes. You are a good apprentice. You also learn that these common skin diseases are not just a physical affliction, they are a social one. A visible disease of the skin marks a person as unclean, as tainted. And this stigma is especially potent in a city like Rome. With its great public bathhouses, the Roman baths are a central part of civic life. But they are also a great public epidemiological experiment. You hear your master discussing it. He believes the baths are, on the whole, good for the health, a place of cleanliness, but he also admits that the shared waters, the common scraping tools called strigils used to remove oil and dirt, and the close, physical proximity of hundreds of naked bodies, are a perfect environment for the spread of these common itches and rashes. This is a great historical debate. Were the Roman baths magnificent centers of public hygiene that promoted health, or were they giant, warm, and wet petri dishes, magnificent architectural incubators for the spread of everything from fungal infections to intestinal parasites? The truth is likely a bit of both. One afternoon, your master decides it is time for you to learn about the other side of your trade, the art of cosmetics. You believe that your job is to cure disease, but you quickly learn that it is often more profitable to treat the perceived flaws of the healthy and the wealthy. A noblewoman, the wife of a prominent senator, arrives at your clinic. She is a woman of great beauty and even greater vanity. She is not suffering from a rash or an itch. She is suffering from the far more terrible affliction of being 40 years old. She complains to your master of the fine lines appearing around her eyes, of the sunspots on her skin, of a general dullness to her complexion. Your master diagnoses this not as a disease, but as a dryness of the spirit, and he prescribes a series of expensive and elaborate cosmetic treatments, and you are the one who must prepare them. You spend the entire afternoon creating a special facial mask for her. Based on a secret recipe from Egypt, you mix fine white lead powder, which gives the skin a fashionable, if toxic, pale sheen. You add honey. For its soothing properties, you whip in the fresh milk of a donkey, which is believed to be a powerful skin softener. And finally, you add the key ingredient, a large spoonful of powdered crocodile dung. You remember this from your early days as an apprentice. You are now a key player in the ancient practice of using reptilian feces as a high-end cosmetic product. It is a humbling moment. Your master sells the small pot of this ridiculous concoction for a price that could feed your own family for a month. The noblewoman is delighted. She is convinced that this exotic and expensive preparation holds the secret to eternal youth. You are learning that in your trade. The price of the cure is often its most powerful ingredient. You are becoming a competent, well-trained apprentice. You have mastered the simple remedies for the simple afflictions. You have put the unsettling memory of the soldier with the incurable sacred fire behind you. You feel you are ready for anything. And then, a new patient arrives at your clinic, and your real education in horror begins. He is not a slave, or a child, or a wealthy matron. He is a beggar, a man who has been sent to you by a local priest. The man enters your workshop, and you recoil in shock and fear. His face is a ruin. It is lumpy, distorted. The skin thickened into great, coarse folds. His eyebrows are gone. His nose has begun to collapse. His hands are gnarled. The fingers shortened and ending in ulcerated stumps. He moves with a slow, shuffling gait, and he looks at you with eyes that are ancient, with a kind of suffering you have never seen before. Your master, Demetrios, is silent for a long moment. He examines the man from a distance. He does not touch him. He simply looks. And then he says the word. A word you have only ever read in your oldest and most terrifying medical texts. A word that is not just a diagnosis, but a life sentence. A word that means the man is no longer a citizen of your world, but an outcast. A dead man walking. Lepra. Your master whispers, "It is leprosy." You stare at the man. At the slow, quiet, and inexorable decay of his flesh, and you realize that your training in the mundane world of itches and rashes has prepared you for nothing. You are about to confront a disease that is not just an imbalance of the humors, but a curse, a living decomposition, a living. The memory of the soldier and his sacred fire is a disquieting one. It is your first true encounter with the absolute limits of your master's science. The poultices did not work. The cooling lotions brought no relief. The man, after a week of agony, simply left. His arm still a mass of blistering pain, seeking a different kind of cure from the priests at the temple of Asclepius. His departure leaves a small, unspoken question hanging in the air of the workshop. What do you do when the theory is not enough? But your master, Demetrios, is a practical man. He quickly moves on. A physician in the city of Rome cannot afford to dwell on his failures. There are too many new patients, too many new and interesting imbalances of the humors that require his attention. And so, your education continues. You put the memory of the sacred fire behind you, and you delve into the mundane, everyday, and deeply miserable world of common skin afflictions. This, you learn, is the real bread and butter of your trade. For every dramatic, terrifying, and inexplicable disease like the one the soldier had, there are 100 common, itchy, scaly, and deeply unpleasant rashes that plague the citizens of this crowded, magnificent, and not particularly clean city. Your master decides it is time for you to learn the art of the salve, the poultice, and the wash. You are to become an expert not just in theory, but in the practical, hands-on work of mixing the remedies for these common complaints. Your first lesson is in the treatment of scabies. The common itch. A slave is brought to your clinic by his master, a wealthy senator. The slave is a young man, but his body is a roadmap of misery. He is covered in a red, angry rash, particularly between his fingers, on his wrists, and in the folds of his skin. He is scratching himself with a frantic, desperate energy, his skin already raw and bleeding from his own fingernails. He tells you the itch is worse at night, and maddening, sleepless torment. You do not know, of course, that the cause of his suffering is a tiny, microscopic mite, Sarcoptes scabiei, that is burrowed under his skin to lay its eggs. You cannot see the mite. So for you, it does not exist. Your master, Demetrios, examines the man and makes his diagnosis based on the principles of humoral medicine. A classic case of an adist or burnt humor, he declares with confidence. The blood has become too hot and sharp, and it is irritating the skin from within, causing the intense pruritus. The cure, therefore, is not to kill the mite, but to cool the blood and to treat the skin with a powerful, purifying ointment. The primary ingredient for this ointment is sulfur. You are sent to the back room with your mortar and pestle. You take a lump of yellow, crystalline sulfur, which smells faintly of brimstone, and you begin the long, laborious process of grinding it into a fine, smooth powder. To this, you add lard common pig fat to create a thick, greasy, yellow paste. It is a simple recipe, and it smells like rotten eggs. You bring the ointment to your master. He instructs the slave to be washed, and then to be covered from head to toe in your sulphurous, stinking paste. The slave is to be wrapped in old linens and left like this for 3 days. It is a miserable, deeply unpleasant treatment. But, as it happens, it works. The sulfur is a natural insecticide and is actually toxic to the scabies mite. You have, by complete accident, stumbled upon an effective cure, but for entirely the wrong reasons. You believe you have cooled the man's hot blood. In reality, you have just poisoned a tiny bug. Your next patient is a child, the daughter of a baker, who is brought in by her mother. The girl has several strange, perfectly circular, red, and scaly patches on her arms and neck. It is what your people call herpes, a word that at this time refers to any kind of spreading. Eruptive skin condition. The common people call it ringworm, because they believe it is caused by a small worm burrowing in a circle under the skin. Your master scoffs at this peasant superstition. There is no worm. He tells the mother with disdain. He diagnoses the condition as an eruption caused by a sharp, acrid humor. The cure is a drying, astringent wash. You are sent to prepare it. You mix strong vinegar with a solution of crushed alum and a tincture of myrrh. You are essentially creating a kind of acidic chemical peel. The girl weeps as it is applied to her sensitive skin. But the treatment, by drying out the fungal infection, again, has some limited success. You learn that much of your medicine works this way by accident. The theories are a fantasy of humors and vapors. But the practical remedies, developed over centuries of trial and error, sometimes manage to stumble upon a real therapeutic effect. You treat the common afflictions of a world without sanitation. You see impetigo, the honey-crusted sores that are so common on the faces of children. You see boils and carbuncles, painful, pus-filled abscesses that you treat by applying a hot poultice of bread and milk to bring them to a head. Before your master lances them with a sharp, hot knife, you become proficient at mixing these remedies. You take pride in the smoothness of your ointments, the clarity of your herbal washes. You are a good apprentice. You also learn that these common skin diseases are not just a physical affliction, they are a social one. A visible disease of the skin marks a person as unclean, as tainted, and this stigma is especially potent in a city like Rome. With its great public bathhouses, the Roman baths are a central part of civic life, but they are also a great public epidemiological experiment. You hear your master discussing it. He believes the baths are, on the whole, good for the health, a place of cleanliness, but he also admits that the shared waters, the common scraping tools called strigils used to remove oil and dirt, and the clothes, physical proximity of hundreds of naked bodies, are a perfect environment for the spread of these common itches and rashes. This is a great historical debate. Were the Roman baths magnificent centers of public hygiene that promoted health, or were they giant, warm, and wet petri dishes? Magnificent architectural incubators for the spread of everything from fungal infections to intestinal parasites? The truth is likely a bit of both. One afternoon, your master decides it is time for you to learn about the other side of your trade, the art of cosmetics. You believe that your job is to cure disease, but you quickly learn that it is often more profitable to treat the perceived flaws of the healthy and the wealthy. A noble woman, the wife of a prominent senator, arrives at your clinic. She is a woman of great beauty and even greater vanity. She is not suffering from a rash or an itch. She is suffering from the far more terrible affliction of being 40 years old. She complains to your master of the fine lines appearing around her eyes, of the sunspots on her skin, of a general dullness to her complexion. Your master diagnoses this not as a disease, but as a dryness of the spirit, and he prescribes a series of expensive and elaborate cosmetic treatments, and you are the one who must prepare them. You spend the entire afternoon creating a special facial mask for her. Based on a secret recipe from Egypt, you mix fine white lead powder, which gives the skin a fashionable, if toxic, pale sheen. You add honey. For its soothing properties, you whip in the fresh milk of a donkey, which is believed to be a powerful skin softener. And finally, you add the key ingredient, a large spoonful of powdered crocodile dung. You remember this from your early days as an apprentice. You are now a key player in the ancient practice of using reptilian feces as a high-end cosmetic product. It is a humbling moment. Your master sells the small pot of this ridiculous concoction for a price that could feed your own family for a month. The noblewoman is delighted. She is convinced that this exotic and expensive preparation holds the secret to eternal youth. You are becoming a competent, well-trained apprentice. You have mastered the simple remedies for the simple afflictions. You have put the unsettling memory of the soldier with the incurable sacred fire behind you. You feel you are ready for anything. And then, a new patient arrives at your clinic, and your real education in horror begins. He is not a slave, or a child, or a wealthy matron. He is a beggar, a man who has been sent to you by a local priest. The man enters your workshop, and you recoil in shock and fear. His face is a ruin. It is lumpy, distorted. The skin thickened into grate, coarse folds. His eyebrows are gone. His nose has begun to collapse. His hands are gnarled, the fingers shortened and ending in ulcerated stumps. He moves with a slow, shuffling gait, and he looks at you with eyes that are ancient with a kind of suffering you have never seen before. Your master, Demetrios, is silent for a long moment. He examines the man from a distance. He does not touch him. He simply looks. And then he says the word. A word you have only ever read in your oldest and most terrifying medical texts. A word that is not just a diagnosis, but a life sentence. A word that means the man is no longer a citizen of your world, but an outcast. A dead man walking. Lepra. Your master whispers, "It is leprosy." You stare at the man. At the slow, quiet, and inexorable decay of his flesh. And you realize that your training in the mundane world of itches and rashes has prepared you for nothing. You are about to confront a disease that is not just an imbalance of the humors, but a curse, a living decomposition. The encounter with the leper leaves a cold stone in the pit of your stomach. It is not the fear of contagion your master Demetrios has assured you that leprosy is a cold and dry disease, a kind of slow corruption of the black bile, not an infectious fever that leaps from person to person. The fear is a more philosophical one. You have just witnessed a disease for which your master, in all his wisdom, did not even attempt a cure. He offered a diagnosis, which was in itself a death sentence. And then he sent the man away to his fate. You have learned that there are some afflictions of the skin so profound that your art does not even pretend to have an answer. You spend the next few weeks in a state of quiet contemplation. Your work in the workshop feeling less certain, less powerful. You dutifully mix your sulfur ointments for the common itch and your vinegar washes for the ringworm. But the memory of the leper's ruined face haunts you. It is a reminder of your profession's ultimate impotence in the face of true, deep-seated disease. Life in Rome continues its bustling, chaotic rhythm, but a new anxiety begins to creep through the city. The pestilence that had been ravaging the eastern provinces, the sickness that the returning legions brought home with them, has now begun to appear in the Italian peninsula itself. Travelers bring stories of port towns to the south being decimated by a swift and terrible fever. Your master dismisses the stories. It is the summer heat. He says with confidence, the south is always unhealthy in the summer. It will not reach Rome. He is wrong. The new sickness arrives in the city not as a slow trickle, but as a flood. It begins, as these things always do, in the crowded, filthy suburbs near the docks, but it quickly spreads into the heart of the city itself. This is not a slow, creeping decay like leprosy. This is a fire. Your first encounter with it comes when you are summoned with your master to the house of a prosperous merchant. The man's son, a young man of 20, has been struck down. You enter the sick room and find him burning with a fever so intense that the very air around his bed feels hot. His head aches. He complains of a terrible pain in his back. And he is delirious, muttering and thrashing in his sweat-soaked linens. Your master, Demetrios, performs his examination. He feels the man's pulse. He studies his tongue, a clear case of an excessive boiling of the humors. He declares, the sanguine and the choleric humors are in a state of violent agitation. He prescribes a cooling diet and prepares to recommend a moderate bleeding to calm the blood. But then, as you are helping to sponge the young man's face with a cool cloth, you see it, on his forehead and on his wrists, a faint scattering of small, flat, red spots. You point them out to your master. Over the next 2 days, you witness the horrifying and inexorable progression of the disease. The faint red spots become raised, hard bumps, or papules. Then, these papules begin to fill with a clear fluid, becoming vesicles that look like tiny, glistening blisters. And finally, these vesicles turn cloudy, filling with a thick, yellowish pus. They are now deep, weeping pustules. The young man's entire body, from his face to the soles of his feet, becomes a solid, confluent landscape of these foul, painful, and stinking sores. You are witnessing a case of variola, smallpox, one of the great recurring scourges of your world. Your master's medical arsenal is useless against it. The cooling lotions of cucumber and lettuce that you apply to the man's skin do nothing to stop the eruption of the pustules. A cautious bleeding seems only to weaken him further, his body now having to fight both the disease and the blood loss. Your master's confident theories, his entire elegant system of balancing the humors, is as effective as trying to put out a burning building with a damp cloth. The young man dies on the 7th day of his illness, his body a corrupt and unrecognizable mass of sores. This death marks a new chapter in your education. You have seen the common itches and rashes. You have seen the sacred fire of shingles, and you have seen the slow, disfiguring decay of leprosy. But this is different. This is a pestilence. This is a disease that does not just afflict an individual, but has the power to consume an entire city, and consume it. It does. In the weeks that follow, the smallpox epidemic explodes across Rome. Your work becomes a frantic, hopeless, and unending cycle of visiting the sick and watching them die. The city is a great, open ward, and you are one of its helpless physicians. You see the disease in all its variations. You see the more common form, with its distinct, separate pustules, and you see the more terrifying, confluent form, where the pustules merge together into great, continuous sheets, sloughing the skin away from the body, and you see the most deadly form of all, the hemorrhagic or black smallpox, where the patient bleeds from the skin, the mouth, the nose, and dies before the rash even has time to fully develop. The city of Rome, which has stood for 1,000 years, is brought to its knees. The forums are empty, the markets are closed. The only sound in the streets is the rumble of the dead carts and the weeping of the survivors. You learn about the disease not from your textbooks, but from the brutal classroom of the epidemic itself. You see how it spreads, from one family member to another, from one apartment to the next in your crowded insula. You may not have a theory of germs, but you develop a powerful, practical understanding of contagion. You begin to wash your hands obsessively between patients. You begin to wear a cloth soaked in vinegar over your mouth and nose when you enter a sick room. You see the survivors, and you see that the disease leaves its mark on them forever. When the pustules finally dry up and the scabs fall away, they leave behind deep, pitted, permanent scars, the pockmarks. The disease writes its history on the skin of those it does not kill. A survivor of the smallpox will carry the map of their ordeal on their face for the rest of their life. In the midst of this horror, you remember the obscure practice you had heard of variolation. A desperate mother, whose other children have already died, comes to you. She has heard a rumor, a folk tale, of a way to protect her last remaining child. She asks you if it is true that one can buy the smallpox. She is asking you to take a scab from a recovering patient, from a mild case of the disease, and to scratch it into the skin of her healthy child. It is a terrible gamble. The procedure is dangerous. It can kill the child. The disease itself is even more dangerous. You do not know what to tell her. You are a man of science, and this is a practice of folk magic. But your science has failed. What else is there? As you watch the epidemic unfold, you begin to understand its true, long-term significance. This is not just a medical event. It is a historical event. The sheer number of the dead is changing your world. You see vast tracts of farmland outside the city going unworked. Their owners and tenants all dead. You see the ranks of the army being thinned, not by war, but by the pestilence in the barracks. You see the trade routes faltering as merchants and sailors die in the port cities. Future historians will debate the true demographic impact of great plagues like this one on the Roman Empire. Were they minor, temporary setbacks, or were they catastrophic events that fundamentally weakened the empire? That shrank its population and its economy. That contributed to its long, slow decline. Looking at the empty streets and the overflowing graveyards of your city, you feel you know the answer. The epidemic in Rome finally begins to burn itself out after a long and terrible winter. It has killed perhaps a quarter of the city's population. The survivors emerge into a quieter, emptier, and poorer world. You have survived. You are no longer a naive apprentice. You are a seasoned veteran of a great medical war. You have confronted the most terrifying of all skin diseases, a true pestilence. You have seen your master's theories and your own crumble in the face of its terrible power. You are left with a new and humbling wisdom. You understand that your craft is not one of confident cures, but of desperate, often futile, battles against forces of nature that you do not truly understand. One day, a new patient comes to your workshop. He is not suffering from a fever or a rash. He is a gladiator, a great, brawny man from the city's arena, and his body is a testament to a different kind of skin disease, the disease of a life of violence. His skin is a roadmap of scars, of poorly healed wounds, of the chronic infections that are the constant companions of his trade, and he has a new wound from a trident. That has become infected and is beginning to fester. Your master looks at you. You will treat this one. He says, "Your education is about to enter a new chapter. The great smallpox plague recedes, leaving Rome a scarred and quieter city. But the common, everyday miseries of the human skin remain. Your master, Demetrios, having been humbled by the pestilence, returns to his practice with a renewed, if more sober, focus. And your own education enters anew, more practical and often more disgusting. Phase, you have learned the great theories. You have witnessed the great diseases. Now, you must master the strange and wondrous pharmacopoeia of your trade. You must learn not just the why, but the what. What do you actually put on a man's skin to cure his ills? Your master's workshop, you discover, is a library of bizarre and sometimes stomach-turning ingredients. You had thought your work with sulfur and vinegar was the extent of it. You were wrong. That was merely the preface. Now you begin the book proper. Your master decides it is time for you to learn the art of the complex poultice and the therapeutic plaster. This, he explains, is where the true skill of the apothecary physician lies. Any fool can diagnose an imbalance of the humors, he says. But only a true craftsman knows how to create the specific remedy that will correct it. Your lessons are now a journey through the animal, vegetable, and mineral kingdoms. A tour of the strange things your civilization believes have the power to heal. You learn about the mineral cures. You work with more than just sulfur. You learn to grind green malachite, a copper ore, into a fine powder, which is believed to be a powerful agent against infected wounds. You learn to handle the toxic minerals, the arsenic sulfides called realgar and orpiment. They are a brilliant red and yellow, the color of fire and choler, and they are used in tiny, dangerous amounts in salvas meant to burn away corrupted flesh. You learn that your craft is part medicine, part poison. You learn the deeper secrets of the botanical world. You move beyond simple herbal washes. You learn to boil figs, licorice root, and fenugreek seeds into a thick, sticky paste. This is a classic drawing poultice, meant to be applied hot to a boil or a carbuncle. Its gentle heat and chemical properties believed to draw the morbid humors and the pus to the surface. But it is in the zoological pharmacopoeia that you find the true genius and the true horror of your craft. You learn that the bodies of animals, and, more often, their waste products, are considered to be a treasure trove of powerful remedies. Your first encounter with this new reality comes with a patient suffering from alopecia, a condition where his hair is falling out in patches, leaving smooth, bald spots on his scalp. Your master diagnoses an excess of a cold humor in the scalp, which has made the skin barren. The cure, he explains, must be something hot, stimulating, and full of a kind of vital. Animal energy. He sends you out with a bucket. Your mission to go to the Great Forum, where thousands of pigeons roost on the temples and the basilicas, and to collect their fresh droppings, you, the apprentice of a great physician, spend your afternoon scraping bird dung from the marble statues of the gods. It is a profoundly humbling experience. You return with your bucket of foul-smelling material. Your master shows you how to mix the fresh pigeon droppings with vinegar, honey, and powdered fenugreek to create a thick, warm, and utterly disgusting plaster. This is then applied to the bald man's head and left on for several hours. This, you are told, is a classic and highly effective treatment for restoring hair. You have just made the ancient world's first and worst-smelling Rogaine. This treatment is based on a core principle of your medicine's sympathetic magic, the idea that a substance can transfer its properties to the body. Pigeon droppings are hot. They are active. They come from a vigorous, flying creature. Therefore, they will stimulate the cold and inactive scalp back to life. The logic is poetic, and the smell is unbearable. The lessons in this new organic pharmacy continue. You learn that the stale urine of a healthy boy is a highly prized ingredient in cleansing lotions for ulcers and sores. Its high ammonia content believed to be a powerful purifying agent. Your job involves leaving clay pots of the substance out in the sun to mature, to become more potent. You are no longer just a medical apprentice. You are a kind of artisanal toilet manager. You learn about the cosmetic, and sometimes medical, uses of crocodile dung, a prized and expensive import from Egypt. You learn about salves made from the fat of a bear, believed to be good for aches in the joints. You learn about remedies involving goat's blood, the gall of a wild boar, and the boiled down bodies of lizards. Your master's workshop is not just a laboratory, it is a grotesque zoo. You are forced to wonder, as you are mixing a plaster that contains more animal waste than it does medicinal herbs. About the nature of these cures, is there any real physical effect at play here, or is it something else entirely? You notice that the more bizarre, the more disgusting, and the more expensive the ingredients, the more faith the patient seems to have in the cure. A simple sulfur ointment might work, but it is cheap and common. A poultice of pigeon droppings is foul and strange, and therefore it must be more powerful. A salve containing powdered mummy and the scrapings of a bezoar stone is a remedy for an emperor, and its power must be almost divine. You are witnessing the immense power of the placebo effect, amplified by the theater and the mystique of your profession. Future scholars will debate this endlessly. Was there some unknown, active ingredient in some of these strange concoctions? Did the ammonia in the urine have a real antiseptic effect? Did some of the strange animal fats contain compounds that were beneficial to the skin? Or was it all just a powerful act of suggestion? The patient's own belief in the strange, disgusting and expensive, cure the most powerful ingredient of all. You suspect it is the latter. The cure is not in the pot you are mixing. It is in the story you and your master tell about the pot. Your final lesson in this strange chapter of your education is the most visceral of all. A wealthy senator arrives at your clinic. He has been on a hunting trip and has sustained a deep, ragged wound on his leg from the tusk of a wild boar. The wound has become infected. It is red, swollen, hot to the touch, and beginning to ooze a foul-smelling pus. Your master diagnoses a severe case of a hot, corrupted humor, and he declares that a powerful remedy is needed to draw out the poison. He will use the famous pigeon cure. It is a treatment described by the most learned physicians, and it is reserved for the most serious of infected wounds. He sends you to the market, not for herbs, but to buy a live, healthy pigeon. You return with the bird, cooing and fluttering in a small wicker cage. In the workshop, your master performs the procedure. He takes the live pigeon, he holds it firmly, and with a sharp knife, he cuts the bird in half, lengthwise. While it is still alive, the act is one of brutal, shocking violence. He then immediately takes the two halves of the still warm, still bleeding bird, and he applies them directly to the senator's infected wound. The raw, bloody inner part of the pigeon pressed against the man's skin. He binds the grotesque, feathered poultice to the man's leg. The theory, he explains to you, is that the living flesh of the pigeon, its vital heat, will draw the putrid vapors and the poison out of the wound. The pigeon is a kind of living, sacrificial sponge for the infection. You stand there, your hands shaking, the smell of the blood and the feathers filling the air, and you have reached the absolute limit of your own professional credulity. This is not science. This is not medicine. This is a kind of primitive, blood-soaked folk magic, dressed up in the language of humoral theory. You look at the dead bird on the senator's leg. You look at your master's serene, confident face, and you look at your own hands, which are now stained with the blood of a creature that has been sacrificed for a cure that you know. with a new and absolute certainty, can only be a lie. You are an apprentice in a world of horrors, and you are beginning to realize that some of the most horrifying things are not the diseases themselves, but the things men will do to try and cure them. The horrifying ritual of the pigeon cure, with its primitive brutality and its foundation in pure magical thinking, leaves a deep and lasting crack in your faith in your master's art. You have seen the heights of Roman medicine, with its complex humoral theories and its expensive, exotic pharmacopoeia, but you have also now seen its dark and superstitious underbelly. You have seen a living creature torn apart for a cure that seems more like a desperate, bloody prayer than a medical procedure, and the experience has left you deeply unsettled. You begin to question everything. Is this truly science, or is it all just a series of elaborate, ancient, and ultimately useless rituals, designed to give the illusion of control in the face of the body's terrifying fragility? It is in the midst of this quiet crisis of faith that a new and entirely different kind of patient arrives at your workshop. He is not a sick man, not in the way you have come to understand it, but his skin tells a story of a life of profound, constant, and professional violence. He is a gladiator. He is a massive man. A Thracian? His body a breathtaking landscape of muscle and scar tissue. He is one of the stars of the local ludus. The gladiatorial school. He has not come to you with a fever or a rash. He has come with a simple, clean wound, a deep gash on his forearm, sustained during a practice session with a training sword. The wound is beginning to fester, the edges red and inflamed. Your master, Demetrios, greets him with a level of respect that you do not often see him afford his patients. This is not just a patient. He is an incredibly valuable and expensive piece of property. A top-tier gladiator is an investment, a star athlete whose health and fighting ability are essential to the business of his owner. The lanista, as your master begins the work of cleaning the wound, you are tasked with assisting him, and for the first time, you are able to observe the body of a gladiator up close. It is a history book written in scar tissue. You see the thin, pale, silvery lines of old, well-healed cuts, souvenirs from a dozen different blades. You see the ragged, puckered scar on his shoulder where a trident once pierced his flesh. You see the shiny, melted-looking skin of an old burn on his chest, likely from a heated net. His very skin is a map of his violent profession, and yet you notice something profound. The man is not ashamed of these marks. He carries them with a kind of quiet, professional pride. You ask him about a particularly vicious-looking scar above his eye. A Myrmidon's sword, he says. His voice a low, gravelly rumble. In the arena at Pompeii, he was a good fighter, but I was better. His scars are not a sign of sickness or of shame. They are his medals. They are the proof of his survival, of his strength, of his victories. They are, in their own way, honorable. You think of the other skin afflictions you have seen. The weeping. Pustular sores of the smallpox victim. A mark of a random and undeserved suffering. The slow, disfiguring decay of the leper. A mark that leads to a man being cast out from society as unclean. But these scars, these are different. They are the marks of a man who has faced death head-on and has won. They are a sign of life, not of decay. As you help your master treat the new wound, you learn a different kind of medicine. This is not the theoretical, humoral medicine of the physician's study. This is the practical, battlefield medicine of the surgeon. Your master does not speak of balancing the man's humors. He does not prescribe a poultice of pigeon droppings. His approach is clean, logical, and surprisingly modern. First, he carefully washes the wound, not with some magical potion, but with strong, clean wine. The alcohol, has a powerful cleansing property, an antiseptic quality that helps to prevent the wound from putrefying. Next, with you holding the arm, steady, he takes a fine bronze needle and a thread made of clean, strong sinew. and with a surgeon's skill. He begins to stitch the edges of the wound together, his movements quick, precise, and efficient. The gladiator, this mountain of a man who fights lions for a living, winces at the sting of the needle. It is strangely comforting to know that even a man like this is not immune to a simple poke. Finally, your master applies a dressing. It is not a bizarre concoction of dung and herbs. It is a simple, clean plaster made from a paste of fine flour and wine, spread on a piece of clean linen, and over this, a poultice of crushed comfrey root, an herb known since antiquity for its ability to help knit together torn flesh and bone. This is a medicine that makes sense to you. It is a medicine of visible causes and practical effects. A cut is closed, a wound is cleaned, a clean wound heals. Through the gladiator, you learn about his strange and brutal world. You learn about the ludus, the school where they live and train. You learn about their diet, the gladiatorium saganum, which is not the rich, meat-heavy diet you would expect, but a simple, carbohydrate-heavy mush of barley and beans. This diet, he explains, is designed to build a layer of fat over their muscles, a protective layer that can absorb shallow cuts and make their wounds look more spectacular and bloody in the arena. Without being life-threatening, they are nicknamed horrifying, the barley men. You also learn of the strange social status of these men. This is a great historical debate that you are seeing firsthand. Were gladiators simply despised slaves and criminals? The lowest of the low, forced to kill each other for the amusement of a decadent mob? Or were they also, in their own way, celebrities, popular heroes, admired for their courage and their skill, their names chanted by the crowds, their images scratched as graffiti on the walls of the city? The truth, you realize, is that they were both. They were simultaneously the most despised and the most adored men in Rome. You treat the gladiator's wound over the next several days. You change his dressings. You apply fresh poultices, and you see that your master's practical. Clean medicine is working. The inflammation subsides. The edges of the wound knit together cleanly. There is no pus, no sign of the putrefaction you have come to associate with so many of your other cases. This experience is a revelation to you. You realize that your master possesses two entirely different kinds of knowledge. There is the grand, theoretical, and often useless knowledge of the physician, with his humors and his astrology and his pigeon droppings. And then there is the quiet, practical, and effective knowledge of the surgeon, with his clean wine, his needle and thread, and his simple healing herbs. You find yourself drawn to this second kind of knowledge. It is a medicine that is grounded not in ancient, unprovable theories, but in the observable reality of the human body. It is a medicine that seeks not to perform miracles, but to simply, quietly, and effectively help the body to heal itself. The gladiator's wound heals perfectly, leaving behind another clean, white scar that will become part of the story his skin tells. He is grateful. He pays your master a handsome fee, and he even gives you, the apprentice, a small silver coin for your gentle hands. After he leaves, you stand in your workshop, the silver coin in your hand, and you look at the shelves of your pharmacopoeia. You look at the jars of powdered minerals, of exotic animal parts, of strange and foul-smelling ingredients for your magical poultices. And you see them now with new eyes. You see them not as a library of powerful cures, but as a museum of well-intentioned ignorance. And then you look at the simple, clean tools of the surgeon's trade that lie on your workbench, the sharp needles, the clean linen bandages, the jar of common comfrey root, and, with a sudden and absolute clarity, which kind of healer you want to be. You have seen the skin ravaged by diseases that your science cannot touch. But you have also now seen the skin healed by the simple, practical application of cleanliness and care. You are beginning to find your own path. A path that turns away from the grand, dramatic, and often false promises of the physician, and towards the quiet, humble, and effective craft of the surgeon. You are learning that the greatest cures are not always the most complicated ones. The encounter with the gladiator and is clean. Honorable Scars is a turning point in your education. It reaffirms your growing belief in a practical, hands-on, and rational kind of medicine. A medicine of clean wounds, of simple herbal poultices, of tangible and observable results. You begin to feel a renewed sense of pride in your craft. Not the grand, theoretical craft of the university-trained physician, but the humble, effective craft of the surgeon who mends what is broken. You begin to believe that you have found your path, a way to be a true healer in a world of charlatans and misguided theorists. But the world of Roman medicine is a complex and stratified one, and you are about to learn that your services will not always be required for cases of honest physical trauma. Sometimes, the disease you are called upon to treat is not a disease of the body at all, but a disease of the spirit, a disease of vanity. A summons arrives at your workshop. It is from one of the most powerful families in Rome, the wife of the great senator Claudius Appius, a man whose voice can sway the Senate. Requires the services of your master. Her ailment, the message says, is a matter of great urgency and delicacy. You and your master, Demetrios, arrive at the senator's vast villa on the Palatine Hill. It is a world of almost unimaginable luxury. You walk through rooms with heated floors, past walls decorated with vibrant frescoes, past marble statues that look more alive than the people you see in the streets. This is the world of the Roman elite, a world of immense wealth, power, and you are about to discover immense anxiety. You are shown into the private chambers of the lady of the house, the Domina. She is a woman in her late 30s, famous for her beauty, and she is in a state of profound distress. She is not suffering from a fever or a rash or an infected wound. She is suffering from the simple, inexorable, and, for her, terrifying fact that she is getting older. She points with a trembling, bejeweled finger to her own reflection in a polished silver mirror. "Look, doctor," she says to your master, her voice a tragic whisper, a new line. "Here, by my eye, and the sun of the summer has left these spots on my cheeks. And my skin, it has lost its youthful luster. I am becoming old. You must do something." You stand behind your master, a silent apprentice, and you are stunned. You, who have seen the true horrors that can afflict the human skin, the weeping pustules of smallpox, the rotting flesh of leprosy, the agonizing blisters of the sacred fire, are now being asked to treat a few fine wrinkles and a smattering of freckles as if they were a life-threatening medical condition. But your master does not scoff. He does not dismiss her concerns. He looks at her with an expression of deep, solemn, and professional seriousness. You realize, in that moment, that you are not here to treat a disease of the skin. You are here to treat a disease of the mind, the terror of a wealthy woman losing her most valuable asset, her beauty, and so begins your education in the great and profitable art of Roman cosmetology. Your master makes his diagnosis. The Domina, he explains to her in a soothing, confident tone, is suffering from an imbalance of the humors that is causing a dryness of the spirit and a withering of the skin. The cure, he assures her, is a comprehensive regimen of special preparations designed to restore her skin's youthful moisture and pale, luminous glow, the Roman ideal of female beauty. You learn is a highly specific and demanding one. The most desirable woman is one whose skin is as pale as alabaster, as smooth as polished marble, and entirely free from any blemish. A pale complexion is a sign of high status, a sign that a woman does not have to toil in the sun like a common farm girl. And the pursuit of this ideal has created a vast and lucrative market for your trade. You are sent back to your workshop with a long and complex list of cosmetic prescriptions to prepare, and you delve into a new and even stranger pharmacopoeia. Your first task is to create a skin whitening cream. The primary ingredient is cerussa, or white lead. You take the heavy, white, powdered metal and you mix it with honey and fat to create a thick, smooth paste. You know from your work with painters that lead is a poison, but it is also the most effective skin whitening agent known to man. It provides a beautiful, if toxic, pale complexion. Next, you must prepare a series of facial masks. You are told to recreate the most famous and most expensive one, the one favored by the Empress Poppaea herself, the wife of the great Nero. You take fresh ass's milk, renowned for its skin-softening properties, and you mix it with fine barley flour and honey. And then, you add the infamous secret ingredient, a spoonful of powdered crocodile dung, imported at great expense from the deserts of Egypt. You are once again in the business of preparing reptilian feces as a luxury good. You are beginning to think that in your trade. The more disgusting the ingredient, the more the wealthy believe in its power. You create an exfoliating scrub from powdered oyster shells and fine sand to be mixed with milk to gently polish away the outer, dead layer of the skin. You prepare a depilatory cream, a substance for removing unwanted hair. Its active ingredient, a powerful and caustic mixture of arsenic sulfide and lime. Beauty, you are learning, is a painful and often poisonous business. As you work, you reflect on the strange world of these elite Roman women. Their lives are ones of immense privilege, but also of immense pressure. Their value, their status, their very security is often tied to their beauty, to their ability to attract and to keep a powerful husband. This is a debate that future feminist historians will explore. Was this obsession with cosmetics a form of self-expression and empowerment? A way for these women to display their wealth and to control their own appearance in a male-dominated world? Or was it an oppressive and burdensome duty? A gilded cage that forced them into these strange and often dangerous beauty routines in order to conform to a standard set by men looking at the desperate, anxious face of the senator's wife. You suspect the latter is closer to the truth? After a week of preparation, you return with your master to the villa, your arms laden with ornate pots and vials of your cosmetic creations. You spend the afternoon assisting your master as he applies the treatments to the noblewoman. You are no longer a medical apprentice. You are a spa attendant. The results are, to your skeptical eye, minimal. The lead powder does, indeed, make her skin look paler. The various oils and creams make it look smoother, more lustrous. But she has not been transformed. She has not been made young again. But the noblewoman herself is ecstatic. She looks in her silver mirror and she sees a reflection of her own hope. She believes she has been rejuvenated. She thanks your master profusely, and she pays him a fee so large it could have funded your own workshop for a full year. The most powerful ingredient, you realize, was not the lead, or the ass's milk, or even the crocodile dung. It was your master's reassuring bedside manner. It was the mystique of his secret recipes. It was the sheer, glorious expense of it all. He was not selling her a cure for her wrinkles. He was selling her a cure for her anxiety. You leave the magnificent villa on the Palatine Hill, and you walk back down into the crowded, noisy, and dirty streets of the real Rome as you near your own neighborhood. You pass a beggar sitting in the dirt by the side of the road. He is an old soldier, his body a ruin of old wounds and untreated ailments. His skin is covered in the common, weeping sores of poverty and filth. He holds out a trembling hand. Begging for a coin, you look from the image of the wealthy woman in her luxurious bed, weeping over a single wrinkle, to the image of this man, his body a testament to real, profound, and ignored suffering, and you feel a deep and hollow sense of shame for your own profession. You have been trained in a great and learned art, but you are beginning to understand that this art is not always about healing the sick. It is often simply about servicing the anxieties of the rich. You have seen that a disease can be a physical thing, a spiritual thing, a social thing, and now you see that it can also be a thing of pure vanity. You give the old soldier the silver coin the gladiator gave you. It is not much, but it is a real, tangible thing. A small act of comfort in a world of profound and unequal suffering. The experience with the gladiator and his clean. Honorable scars is a revelation. It teaches you that there is another kind of medicine. A practical, tangible, and effective craft that exists alongside the grand, theoretical, and often fantastical world of your master's humoral science. But it is your next great lesson, the one learned from the wealthy Roman matrons in their sun-drenched villas. That proves to be the most disillusioning of all. It teaches you that the line between a disease and a desire can be a very thin one indeed. You are now a seasoned apprentice, your hands skilled in the preparation of both surgical dressings and cosmetic creams. You understand that your trade is not just about healing the sick, it is also about servicing the anxieties of the healthy and the wealthy. And it is this new, cynical understanding that allows you to see the next great truth of your profession. You begin to notice a pattern, a subtle but persistent connection that is not written in any of your master's great medical texts. You begin to suspect that many of the skin conditions you treat are connected, in some deep and mysterious way, to the state of your patients' souls. You are beginning, without knowing it, to stumble upon the ancient mystery of the mind-body connection. Your first clue comes from a regular client, a wealthy shipping merchant named Cassian. He is a man who suffers from a recurring angry and weeping rash on his hands and arms, what you would diagnose as an affliction of an overly moist or phlegmatic humor. Your master treats him with drying powders and astringent lotions. And sometimes the rash gets better, but it always comes back. You, however, begin to notice a pattern. The merchant's rash seems to flare up with a terrible intensity when his ships are overdue, when a storm is threatening his cargo, or when he is engaged in a stressful legal battle in the forums, and when his ships return safely to the port of Ostia, their holds filled with grain from Egypt. His skin miraculously begins to clear. You tentatively suggest this observation to your master. Demetrios, it seems, master, you say, that the state of Signor Cassian's humors is much improved when his cargo is safe in the warehouse. Demetrios scoffs at your naivete. You are confusing cause and effect. Boy, he says. His anxiety is a symptom of his internal humoral imbalance, not the cause of it. His passions are agitated because his phlegm is in excess. The state of his ships is irrelevant to the state of his skin, but you are not so sure. You see it again and again. You see a young soldier in the city barracks, a boy from a farm in Gaul, who is desperately homesick. He develops a terrible case of acne, his face a landscape of inflamed pustules. Your master treats him with harsh, sulfurous lotions, but you notice that the boy's skin only begins to clear after he receives a letter from his family. You see a woman who lives in the apartment below your workshop. She is married to a brutish, violent man, and her life is one of constant fear. She suffers from chronic, non-healing ulcers on her legs. You apply your most effective salves, but the sores refuse to close. The only time they seem to get better is when her husband, a sailor, is away on a long voyage. You are witnessing the physical manifestation of emotional distress. You are learning that fear, grief, anxiety, and despair are not just afflictions of the spirit, they are also diseases of the skin. They can write their own terrible stories on the body. A story that is invisible to your master's diagnostic arts. This is a profound and difficult concept for your time. The world of medicine you inhabit believes in a clear separation between the body and the soul. The soul is the province of the priests and the philosophers. The body is a machine of humors and vapors, a thing to be treated with physical substances. The idea that a thought could cause a rash, that a feeling could cause a fever, is a radical and unsupported one. But you see the evidence before your very eyes every day. You begin to understand that a physician who treats only the skin, without understanding the life of the person who inhabits it, is like a stonemason who tries to repair a cracking wall without looking at the faulty foundation beneath it. In your search for answers, you learn of the other, parallel medical systems that exist in your city. Systems that the official, Greek-trained physicians like your master dismiss as pure superstition. You hear of the healing sanctuaries, the temples of the god Asclepius, where patients go to be cured not by potions, but by dreams. They sleep in the sacred halls of the temple, and the god is meant to visit them in their sleep, offering them a vision or a quiet word of advice that will lead to their healing. It is a medicine of faith, of suggestion, of what future ages will call psychotherapy. You also see the quiet work of the Christian community. You remember them from the time of the Great Plague. You remember how they cared for their sick with a fearless devotion, and you learn that their approach to healing is a holistic one. They pray for the body, yes, but they also offer comfort to the spirit. They provide community, support, and a sense of hope to the afflicted, and you, who have seen the connection between despair and disease. Begin to wonder if their simple, compassionate care is not a more powerful medicine than all of your master's expensive and disgusting poultices. This is a great historical debate, seen through your own eyes. What is the nature of healing? Is it a physical science or a spiritual art? Is the history of medicine the story of great physicians and their rational theories? Or is it also the story of the quiet, unwritten traditions of folk healers, of priests, of women, who have always understood that you cannot treat a body without also treating the heart and the soul that live inside it? You begin to practice your own secret kind of medicine. You cannot openly defy your master, my lord, but when his patients come to you to have their prescriptions filled, you do more than just mix the ointments. You talk to them. You listen. You listen to the merchant's anxieties about his business. You listen to the soldier's stories of his home. You listen to the woman's fears about her husband. You offer no advice. You are not a philosopher, but you offer the simple, powerful, and often overlooked remedy of a compassionate ear. You learn that sometimes the most effective ingredient in any cure is the simple act of being heard. The climax of your new education comes with a particularly difficult case. A young scholar is brought to your master. He is suffering from a terrible, body-wide skin affliction. His skin is red, inflamed, and covered in thick, silvery scales. It is intensely itchy. And he has scratched himself raw. He cannot sleep. He cannot work. His life is a misery. Your master diagnoses a particularly virulent combination of hot and dry humors, a kind of internal fire that is consuming the man's skin, and he throws the entire arsenal of your pharmacopoeia at him. You mix cooling lotions of cucumber. You create soothing salves of lead and lanolin. You prepare bitter herbal teas designed to purge the choleric humor from his body. Nothing works. The scholar's condition only gets worse. He becomes a fixture in your clinic, his face a mask of suffering and despair. One afternoon, your master is called away to the villa of a wealthy senator. You are left alone in the workshop with the scholar. He is in a state of deep despondency. You decide to try your own new method. You do not speak to him of his humors. You ask him about his life, and the story pours out of him. He is a student of rhetoric, and he is preparing for a great public examination that will determine his entire future. The pressure is immense. He is terrified of failing, of disgracing his family. He has not slept properly in months. His life is a constant, churning agony of anxiety. You listen. You simply listen. And then, instead of preparing another one of your master's complex remedies, you go to your own small stash of simple herbs. You brew the scholar a cup of chamomile and lavender tea. Your body is not at war. My friend, you tell him, your voice quiet, your spirit is Go home. Forget your books for a few days. Drink this tea and try to sleep. Let your mind be at peace and your body will follow. The scholar looks at you, his eyes full of a new, strange hope. He takes the simple, fragrant tea, and he leaves. A week later, he returns. He is a new man. His skin is not cured, the scales are still there, but the angry, red inflammation is gone. The terrible itching has subsided, and his face is not a mask of agony, but one of calm relief. It was the tea. Apothecary's boy. He says to you, a smile on his face. It was the first time I have slept through the night in a year. The sleep, I think the sleep was the cure. You look at him, at the quiet miracle that has been wrought not by a powerful potion, but by a simple cup of tea and a moment of peace. And you understand the final, most profound lesson of your craft. You have not treated his skin. You have treated his spirit. You have healed him more effectively with a moment of compassion than your master could with all the rare and expensive ingredients in his jars. You have found your true calling, and it is a medicine that is far deeper and far more mysterious than you ever could have imagined. You are an old man now. The city of Rome has grown and changed around you, but the fundamental truths of the human body, its pains and its frailties, have not. You are no longer the wide-eyed apprentice to a master physician. You are the master now, a respected, if somewhat eccentric. Doctor in your own right, your hair is white. Your hands are spotted with age, Mehmed, but your eyes are still clear. And they have seen a lifetime of human suffering written on the skin. Your own clinic is not like the one where you were trained. The strange and terrible curiosities are gone. There is no stuffed crocodile hanging from the ceiling. There are no jars of powdered mummy locked away in a chest. Your workshop smells not of 1,000 competing, exotic ingredients, but of a few simple, clean, and honest herbs of chamomile, of lavender, of the willow bark that you still prescribe for fevers. Your reputation is a strange one. You are known not for miraculous and expensive cures, but for your patience, your kindness, and your honesty. You are the physician the people of your neighborhood come to when all the other. More dramatic. Doctors have failed. They come to you not for magic, but for comfort. Your entire life, your entire career, has been shaped by the lessons you learned in the crucible of your youth. You have seen leprosy and smallpox and the sacred fire. You have seen the failure of the most powerful and expensive remedies. And you have seen the quiet miracle of a cool cloth and a kind word. And so you have built your practice on a foundation of humility. You remember the great debate that always raged, silently, within your profession. What is the true purpose of a physician? Is it to be a great warrior, a heroic general who wages a dramatic and violent war on disease with an arsenal of powerful and often dangerous cures? Or is it to be a simple gardener, a man who patiently tends to the sick body, who weeds out the impediments to health, and who helps to create the best conditions for the body to do its own? Mysterious work of healing your old master. Demetrios was a general. You have chosen to be a gardener. A young man comes to you. He is a student, and he is suffering from a terrible, body-wide psoriasis. The same kind of affliction you saw in the scholar all those years ago. He has been to all the great physicians. He has had his blood let. He has been purged. He has been covered in a dozen different foul-smelling ointments. And he has only gotten worse. You do not look at his skin first. You look at his face. You see the anxiety in his eyes, the deep, weary tension in his shoulders. You ask him not about his rash, but about his life. And he tells you of his fears, of the pressure from his family, of his terror of failing his studies. You do not prescribe a new, more powerful ointment. You prescribe him a month of rest. You give him a simple, calming tea. You teach him how to breathe. Slowly and deeply. When he feels the anxiety rising, you treat his spirit, not his skin. And slowly, week by week, as the anxiety recedes, his skin begins to heal. You have not cured him. You have simply helped him to create the conditions for his own body to cure itself. This is the art you now practice. It is a quiet, patient, and deeply unspectacular art. It does not bring you great wealth or fame. The wealthy patrons still flock to the physicians who offer them dramatic, expensive, and impressive-sounding cures. Your own clients are the common people, the ones who cannot afford the powdered pearls and the crocodile dung. You have seen the full spectrum of your craft, from the sublime to the ridiculous. You have seen the surgeons, like the ones who treated the gladiator, perform wonders of practical, hands-on healing, and you have seen the great theorists, like your old master, perform acts of almost criminal folly, their confidence in their own flawed theories so absolute that they could not see the death they were causing. You have come to believe that the greatest disease a physician can suffer from is not the plague or the pox. It is the disease of certainty. You think, sometimes, of the great changes that are happening in the world. You hear stories of new institutions being founded by the now powerful Christian community. They are called hospitals. They are not like the clinics of the physicians. They are places that offer shelter, food, and comfort to the sick and the dying, especially the incurable. They are places built not on the promise of a cure, but on the simple, radical practice of compassion. You hear of this, and you think that perhaps the world is, very slowly, beginning to learn the same lesson that you have. One evening, you are sitting in your study, an old man at the end of a long life. You take out a small wooden box. Inside are the few mementos you have kept. Your first, clumsy, apprentice's lancet, a single shimmering, golden tessera from the ruins of your old workshop, and the small, broken piece of your mother's earthenware bowl. You hold these objects in your old, wrinkled hand. They are the story of your life, the story of a boy who believed in the simple, solid truth of stone, who was then initiated into the complex and often false world of medicine, and who has finally arrived, in his old age, at an even simpler truth. The truth is that you are helpless. The human body is a great and profound mystery. Its capacity for sickness is immense, but so too is its capacity for healing. And your role as a physician is not to be a magician. It is to be a humble servant to that mystery, to comfort, to soothe, to listen, and above all, to do no harm. You look at your own hands. They are clean. They are the hands of a healer. Not because they have performed great miracles, but because they have learned the simple, profound, and life-giving wisdom of when to do nothing at all. You have spent a lifetime treating the skin, the great, complex organ that separates us from the world. And you have learned that the only cure for the great, shared human condition of suffering is not a potion or a plaster, but the gentle, healing touch of another human hand. The old physician places his few, treasured mementos back in their wooden box. He closes the lid, and with it, he closes a long and difficult chapter of history. The memory of the ancient diseases, of the strange and terrible cures, of a lifetime spent grappling with the mysteries of the human body, all fades now into the quiet, lamp-lit peace of his study. His story is over. His lessons are learned. Let the image of him, an old man finally at peace with the limits of his own hands, now gently dissolve. Your own journey is at its end. Return from the marble streets of ancient Rome, from the world of humors and of herbs, to the familiar comfort of your own room. The air here is still and quiet. The world outside is at rest. You are safe. You are comfortable. The great, complex, and often painful story of the past can be put away now. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. A slow, deep, and effortless tide, washing away the last of the day's thoughts. Feel the weight of your body, a comforting and solid presence, sinking into the softness of your bed. The darkness behind your eyelids is a warm and welcoming space. a sanctuary of peace and of quiet. There are no more lessons to be learned tonight, no more histories to be endured. There is only the simple, healing act of letting go. Allow your mind to grow still. Allow your body to be at rest. Surrender to the soft, quiet, and inevitable pull of sleep.